Krishna में विराजे घनश्याम राधे राधे कुंज में विराजे घनश्याम राधे राधे कुंज में विराजे घनश्याम राधे राधे श्याम राधे राधे 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 घनश्याम राधे 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 श्याम मिला दे 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 कुंज में विराजे घनश्याम राधे राधे कुंज में विराजे घनश्याम राधे राधे घनश्याम राधे राधे श्याम राधे राधे घनश्याम राधे राधे श्याम राधे राधे घनश्याम राधे 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 श्याम मिला दे 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 कुंज में विराजे घनश्याम राधे राधे कुंज में विराजे घनश्याम राधे राधे कुंज में विराजे घनश्याम राधे राधे ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. All together. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Welcome to satsang. I'll begin as always with a question that's come in advance, and then open it up to any questions that anyone here may have. Is it at all possible that the way I sometimes react to people is their karma and not due to the fact that I'm in a really bad mood? We are not the karmic police. The law of karma does not require us to dish out what people are due. So you should never think that what you're doing is giving someone their karma. And the reason is we have no way of knowing the full picture. You may see one action of someone, one karma. Karma literally means action. When we talk about getting karma, it's not exactly right. It's getting the fruits of karma. Karma means action, and the fruits of that action are what we receive. The role of dishing out what people are due is not our role. That's the role of the universe. So you should never worry about what is someone else's karma. What do they need to get? What do they deserve? Think about what is your karma, as in what actions are you doing, and therefore what fruits are you going to get. So if you react badly to someone, sure, it's interconnected with their karmic package, or they wouldn't be in a relationship with you in the first place. Everyone we interact with is in our lives for a reason. Our colleagues, our loved ones, our families, we come onto this earth and we actually choose. We choose the path that we're walking. Some of it we choose consciously. We make a conscious decision to co-create our lives with the universe in a certain way. Some of it we chose even before we were born. We chose the families we were going to come into. We chose the way that we were going to come into the world because of the full interaction of our karmic package. That it's not just about rewards and punishments. It's not, someone must have done something bad, that's why I got mad at them now, and so they're really just getting their karmic due, and I don't need to control my temper, because if I yelled at them, and generally I'm a nice person, it means they must have just had our lives. The paths that we walk, the families we come into, the situations we come into. We choose because those are the ones that are the most conducive for our next step of spiritual growth. We look at someone who's really rich and you think, oh, if money is your thing, you think, oh, God, I wish I were as lucky. I wish I had done whatever good karma that guy must have done to get so much money. Or you look at someone who's really beautiful or really handsome or very successful and you think, oh, they must have done some really good karma. That's why they're getting this. The law of karma gives us not rewards and punishments. The law of karma has no preference of fat or thin, dark or fair, tall or short, married, unmarried, 4 children, no children. The law of karma isn't saying, oh, you were really good, so you're going to get this sought-after package over here. It's not like getting a promotion at work. You do a good job, the boss calls you in, says, well, all right, here's your promotional package. No. We get what we get because, A, it's literally the direct fruits of what we've done in the past. So we've planted seeds in the past that are bearing fruit today. Some of it we get because it is the most conducive way for us to peel back our next layers, to peel back that which we need to peel back to move ahead, to get closer to our ultimate awareness. Sometimes that happens in health. Sometimes it happens in sickness. Sometimes it happens in success. Sometimes it happens in loss. Sometimes it's going to happen in a certain family. Sometimes it happens in a different type of family. So that which we receive as our karmic package is A, the results of the seeds we've planted, and B, that which is conducive for us, the most conducive for us to take our next step. So forget the other guy for just a moment. Look at your own karmic package. What you're receiving in the world is not about rewards or punishments. But it's also not about someone being nice or not nice or fair or not fair. What you're receiving is that which, in whatever very complex algorithm the universe uses, that which is the most conducive for you to take your next step. And so if it happens in health, wonderful. If it happens in sickness, ask yourself, what's the step I'm supposed to be taking here? What am I supposed to be learning here? And yeah, sure, the sickness may be due to some seed you've planted in the past, but that doesn't mean you're to blame for it. A lot of times we blame ourselves. You must have done something wrong. That's why you're sick. That's why you're failing. No. Sure, the fruit of a seed you planted, but it's neither wrong nor right. It just is. And when it is, the only question that we need to ask ourselves is, what's the step I'm supposed to be taking from here? What's the layer of me that's supposed to be getting peeled back? How is this situation supposed to be something that through walking through, I attain a deeper, higher level of awareness? Because that's what we're getting. The universe is not dishing out rewards and punishments. It's not like Santa Claus. You know, we're taught when we're kids, right? Santa knows if you've been good or bad. And so we tend to put that vision onto God, onto laws of karma. But God isn't Santa Claus. The law of karma isn't Santa Claus. Nobody is sitting there saying, have you been good or bad? What are you going to get? God is there. If God were saying anything, saying, come, 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 come into awareness, come into awareness, come into awareness. Come to me. Come to me in you. That's all God says. And the law of karma is giving you that which you need to take your next step. And if it's bitter, if you're not enjoying it, then ask yourself, number one, when and where did I plant this seed, and how can I be sure not to plant it again? If I've got an apple tree in my yard and I'm allergic to apples and they make me break out in hives, and all right, well, at some point you or someone planted an apple seed in your garden. So how can I prevent that in the future? But in the meantime, now that I'm here with this apple tree that I'm allergic to, and I hate apples and they give me hives, how can I use it? How can I use it? So my prayer, instead of my prayer being, oh God, turn this apple tree into a peach tree. Oh God, wave your magic wand. Give me the peach mantra so that I can chant the right mantra. And instead of this apple tree that I hate, I could have a peach tree that I would love. Instead of that, the prayer is, oh God, can you help me overcome this allergy to apples? And if not, oh God, can you help me see the beauty in this tree I'm allergic to? So that maybe I find school children who are able to come by after school or on weekends with baskets and pick apples. Or, oh God, can you teach me how to make applesauce and apple pie so I can take it and feed others? That's the prayer. So going back to the question, if you're losing your temper at people, that's your work to do. Never, ever, ever think, I'm just dishing out their karma. This is one of it's a great example actually of the brilliant rationalization of the ego. The ego is so good. It takes all these spiritual terms as we use them and then uses them to rationalize for you to keep acting exactly the way you've always acted. For you to live exactly the way that you've always lived. But it takes these terms so that the way that you've always acted now sounds very spiritual. So instead of I lost my temper because I have no control over my temper, I lost my temper because I have issues with anger. I lost my temper because I have issues of control and issues of expectation, and I lose consciousness. Instead of that, suddenly it becomes, I lost my temper because it was your karma to get yelled at. And if you hear yourself saying things like that, that's a really good way to say, all right, here. Okay, Mr. Ego or Miss Ego. Nice that you've come to pay us a visit today, but not so fast. I'm not going to believe that. But it's very, very brilliant the way that the ego works. I can't tell you how many people, when I first took vows of sannyas, vows of renunciation, of celibacy, how many people from the West said to me, celibacy? But India is the land of the Kama Sutra. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean celibacy? This is the land of sex and, as many positions as you can and as many partners as you can, and it's enlightenment through sex, right? The Kama Sutra. And then of course you say, well, how much do you know about the sutras? And of course they don't know anything about the sutras, but they just know that there is something called the Kama Sutra and that it has to do with sex, and maybe they've seen something of it. And so of course what happens is the ego is brilliant. It says, I want to be a spiritual person. I want to give myself the stamp of approval of spirituality. But I'm sexually promiscuous. And so so again, lots of people say to me, I'm practicing Tantra. And I say, that's really interesting. Tell me about it. What does that mean for you? Well, typically in places where they haven't studied it very deeply or haven't studied it from real masters, what it looks like is lots of sex with lots of people with a stamp of approval of spirituality. Because this is the game of the ego. I want to keep doing what feels good to me, what I want to do, but I want to give myself that spiritual stamp of approval. So, where when I was just a normal, non-spiritual person, I had this conscience that said, maybe I shouldn't be cheating on my husband or wife. Now that I'm spiritual, it's Tantra. It's part of my spiritual path. Now it's a good thing. It's a spiritual thing. So see how we make losing my temper, promiscuity, all of these things that otherwise we would tell ourselves, I need to work on that. But if you can co-opt some spiritual terms, suddenly you have rationalization. So you've got to be really careful of this. Really careful of the way that the ego wants to keep doing exactly what it likes to do, exactly what its habit is of doing. But give it a spiritual explanation. And the truth really is, internally you know. You don't need me to tell you. Internally you know. And this is where we need to really go within and figure out how to tease away the voice of desire, the voice of fear, the voice of indoctrination, the voice of laziness, the voice of our subconscious identities, to have the courage to look at them. Nothing is bad. Lust isn't bad. It's just ignorant. It's identifying with the body rather than the soul. Anger isn't bad. It's just a pattern that you've gotten into, and now you get yourself out of it. Nothing is bad. There's just aspects that bring us closer to the light and aspects that keep us from the light. Aspects that bring us closer to the truth of who we are and aspects that keep us farther from the truth of who we are. Aspects that bring us into an awareness of soul and aspects that keep us rooted in body. So have that courage. Whoever asked this question can't really think that they're yelling at someone because it's the other guy's karma. We know. Pujya Swamiji always says, even dogs know. He says, you watch a dog steal a piece of bread or something off of one of those food carts. The dog steals it, and it then goes like this. And if there's no one around, the dog will sit and eat it right there. But if there is someone around, the dog will run into a dark corner and eat it there. So Pujya Swamiji always says, even the dog knows. And we know. We just have to have the courage to stop selling ourselves short. To stop telling ourselves, I can't get over my anger, I can't get over my lust, I can't get over my laziness, I can't get over my material obsession, therefore, I need to concoct this spiritual drama around it so that I can keep doing it and feel okay about it. Have the courage to just face it. Bring some light to it. The minute you bring light to it, that darkness dispels. And that's the goal of the path, is to just become that light. And the darkness dispels. Before taking any of the other questions that came in advance, I'm happy to take any questions that anyone here may have. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question concerning self-appreciation.
Self-appreciation, okay?
Or self-love.
Sure.
What would you recommend the person that somehow does not really appreciate certain aspects of his or her personality or body? And I know, like, it's about meeting your shadows and trying to accept what's there. But if you get stuck somewhere along the way, like, is there something more that can be done or not?
Great. So first of all, when we talk about self-love, it doesn't mean I love every convoluted, indoctrinated, unconscious aspect of my personality. Self-love is love of the capital S self, meaning the truth of who I am, soul, spirit, consciousness, divinity. There are absolutely aspects of ourselves that we'd like to change. I hope. And I say that because most of us, I assume all of us, have patterns. Now, the longer we work with them, the lower they get, the smaller they get. But nonetheless, we have patterns. Whether it's a difficulty getting up early in the morning to meditate, sort of an inclination to hit the snooze button. Whether it's our anger, whether it's our lust, whether it's inability to let go of alcohol or drugs or whatever it may be, a lot of us have different aspects of our lives, of our personalities, that we'd like to be different. Self-love doesn't mean that I accept wholeheartedly every aspect of my subconscious indoctrinated way of being. It means I love and I accept the fullness of who I am. Because who I am is divine. The core of who you are is divine and perfect and pure. And I don't even know you in terms of your habits and your personality. So I don't even know what those things might be. But even without knowing them, I can tell you it doesn't matter. Because the core of who you are is divine. Now, on top of that divinity, we put ignorance. And in that ignorance, and in that patterning, when we're young, we get indoctrinated. We get indoctrinated by our families who are doing the very best they can, who mean well, but who themselves are in various types of ignorance. We get indoctrinated by our culture, by our society. We get indoctrinated by our educational system that's much more interested in us learning how to sit down and shut up than actually in discovering who we are. We get indoctrinated into systems that tell us what's good, what's bad. Your pencils are back in the box, you are good. Pencils are not back in the box. Desk is messy, you're bad. So we get into all these systems, aspects of who we are. Talk about vasanas. These are things that we work. We work to overcome because they're keeping us from knowing the truth of who we are. So it's not that I don't love myself. It's actually that I love myself so much. I'm prepared to go head to head with my anger, with my lust, with my greed, with my patterning, because those things are keeping me from living in a constant awareness of self-love. Those things make me live in darkness. Those things make me identify with a small self. Those things tell me you are not enough. You're not smart enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not popular enough. You're not rich enough. You haven't accomplished enough. You're not pure enough. And if I really love myself, then I need the voices in my own head to stop saying those things, because that's violence. When we pledge ourselves to non-violence, to ahimsa, well, it means we really better figure out how to do something about the voices in our own heads that are violent to us. So self-love does not mean, oh yeah, I'm going to let every patterned commentator in my head keep shouting at me that I'm worthless, undeserving, stupid. No, it means I'm actually going to do whatever I can do to get those voices to stop. Not because they're bad, but because they are ignorant. Because on the side of light and dark, they are dark. Not dark as evil, impure, not that. Just darkness of ignorance. We speak a lot in Indian culture and the Vedic tradition about darkness. Ignorance, you can't see. And when we pray, lead us from darkness to light. It's not take us from impurity to purity. It's take us from ignorance to truth. Take us from being blinded, not being able to see the truth of who we are, to being able to see it. That's self-love. When you really love yourself, well, then you know that you deserve to occupy your place here on planet Earth, regardless of whether you got up to meditate today or you hit the snooze button, regardless of whether you've earned $1 today or in the last year, regardless of whether you've accomplished anything ever, regardless of what you look like, regardless of any possible measure that you may use to judge yourself. You are divine, and you are here for a reason. And self-love says, the only way I'm going to find that reason, live that reason, know my truth, is if I can get these voices in my head to stop. And so this is where we work with those parts of us, whether they're behaviors or just voices. Typically they go together. The voices lead to behaviors that keep us from light. So root your self-love in the fullness of yourself. And allow out of that self-love your ability to remove that which is harming you. I mean, think for a moment, if I were a doctor and you came to me with a tumor and I said to you, you need to remove that tumor because it's going to kill you. And you said to me, well, what about self-love? I mean, right? I'm supposed to love myself, and here I am, I'm going to let you cut me up with a knife? That's not self-love. Well, sure it is. Because the tumor is going to kill you. And self-love doesn't mean I just sit here and allow this tumor to kill me. It means I do whatever I can do. And this is on the purely physical level, of course, but sometimes it's easier to understand analogies on a very physical level. You love yourself enough to get the tumor removed so you can live. In the same way, you love yourself enough to allow the ignorance to be removed so that you can live in light, in the truth of who you are. In that capital S self. Okay? Wonderful. We have time for one more quick question, if there is. Yes?
Sadhvi, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the growing epidemic in the West of positive psychology, which is
Yes.
positive thoughts negate your negative ones, and at times it feels contrived and superficial. And comparing that with trying to lead an authentic life, with perhaps a deep practice of gratitude and skillfully being able to deal with afflictive emotions.
Wonderful. Okay. So we'll come back to the actual science of positive psychology in a moment, because there actually is science behind it that's good, real science. The problem is that in most places, the way it's being practiced is in a very superficial way. We take an idea and we think, oh, I got it, just think positively. So I'm going to begin by sharing with you my favorite story on this, which comes from a very divine, enlightened master who's no longer in his body, but used to live right across the river from us, and his name was Swami Dayananji Maharaj. And he used to come here every year in our International Yoga Festival and sometimes other times during the year. He had ashrams in various places and give beautiful, beautiful discourses. And one year, he shared a story about positive thinking. And someone had asked him about whether positive thinking worked and couldn't we just think positive. And his story went like this. And you have to just picture this very elderly, enlightened, brilliant, long white bearded saint telling you the story. Because I'll give it in as close to his words as I remember. So he says, I have a friend. And my friend is very fat. And my friend has high blood pressure and diabetes and is very sick. And so my friend's doctor told him, you must stop eating fatty foods and sugary foods, and you must go on a diet. And he said, one day I saw my friend, and my friend was eating a donut. And I said to him, "Hey friend, why are you eating this donut? I thought your doctor told you." "Well, Swamiji, I'm practicing positive thinking. And see, there's two parts of the donut. One part is this outer circle that, yes, you are right, it is fatty and greasy and sugary. And the other part is the inner part, which is empty. And my positive thinking has taught me to focus on the empty part of the donut instead of the outer part of the donut. And that's why I'm eating a donut, because it's just empty air." So Swami Dayananji Maharaj shared the story, of course, as a brilliant and very funny, he was very, very funny, way of helping us understand the silliness of any practice that's not rooted in truth. To negate reality, to repress and suppress truth, and to live in a very, very superficial layer of reality is not beneficial on any level. Spirituality is all about freedom. So freedom from suffering. Now, you don't get free from suffering by taking your freedom and locking it, by taking your suffering and locking it up into a box in your mind or heart. You get free of it by having the courage to look at it. You get free of it by moving through it, or by sinking so deeply into the truth of who you are that the suffering just dissipates because it existed only on a very attached, superficial level. But you don't get free of it just by pretending there is no suffering. Like you do not avoid the fat grams and calories of a donut by focusing only on the center. So I'm definitely not in favor of untruth. I'm not in favor of superficial level, shallow existence. I'm not in favor of pretending that things are one way when they're another way, when our inner reality is that they are another way. That all being said, there is a lot actually of evidence, spiritual evidence and scientific evidence, of focusing on that which is deeper than the suffering and darkness. So if you can think about it in layers of truth, topmost superficial level, if I'm doing this positive thinking thing, topmost superficial level, I'm great, everything's wonderful, no problem, no. Yes, my brother, sister just died, no problem, here I am on the superficial level of existence. Go a step deeper. I'm really suffering. I'm really in pain. I'm really in pain that my brother or sister or loved one just passed away. I'm really in pain from whatever it is that's causing me suffering. But go a step deeper. And actually what you find is a place of joy and peace that's not the super truth. That even though this has happened, I am able to experience joy. That's different than the just change the way that I talk. but it also exists. So yes, there is light and there is shadow, and there's a lot of wonderful, wonderful teachings about looking at the shadow. But there's also a place in which there is no shadow. And that's in the place of soul, the place of consciousness, the place of spirit. So we have to deal with our shadow as long as we are pushing it away. Because then it's just going to come back and bite me in some other way. Some very unawake, unskillful way of moving in the world. I'm going to be bit by my shadow. But if I'm able to drop into a place of awareness, there's a place that is light with no shadow. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have to deal with our shadow in our day-to-day life. One may be a place that we are able to touch in our meditation. But as we move through our world, yeah, we've got to look at our own shadows. You can't just band-aid it over. Absolutely. There's no one I know who represses, suppresses, denies, who actually gets anywhere. However, lastly, coming back to the actual science of positive psychology, there really actually is some very, very good science here, but what it says is different. It's not talking about repression or suppression or denial. What the science says is people who are optimists, in general, are happier and healthier than people who are pessimists. Now, interestingly, they are wrong more frequently. So actually, people who are pessimists are correct more frequently. They actually get what's going to happen more right more frequently than optimists. So it's a trade-off. Those of us who are optimists tend to be happier and healthier. We also tend perhaps not to be the people you want to hire as your money investors. You may be much better off investing with a pessimist who may not, make you feel warm and fuzzy, but might actually do a better job of predicting the markets. You might want to buy insurance from a pessimist rather than an optimist. But there are ways, because ultimately, in life, at least in most cases, it bodes better for us to be happy and healthy than to be right. And so there are ways that can be taught to raise your general level of living. What they find is that most of us have a particular level upon which we live of happiness, of general happiness. And that if you study people for long enough, you can pretty much tell people where their line is. But there are ways to increase your line. Not temporarily. We know things increase it temporarily, things decrease it temporarily, but there are ways to gently and ever so slightly increase your baseline. And that's what the School of Positive Psychology is about. It's not about repression, suppression, denial, sugarcoating. It's actually about science of A, optimists and pessimists, B, how to take people who may be right but are miserable and help them raise their baseline of happiness in life. And a lot of that science works. So I wouldn't throw that science into the same basket as the people who have simply co-opted terms like positive thinking out of a real science and are practicing it with no science. So don't put the two of them in the same bucket. But that science does actually have a lot of really valid and very, very helpful tools of how to raise your baseline. Even if you're an optimist, we could always use a little bit of baseline raising. Why not? But without disregarding our deepest truth. So we may disregard that it's going to rain on our picnic. But we sink into a much, much deeper level of truth. And that's the spiritual component about it that they don't talk about, is that there is that place beneath the suffering. But we need spirituality rather than just scientific tools to get there. Yeah. Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening.